Elisabeth Omilami is an American treasure and a true Atlanta icon. The daughter of a civil rights legend, Reverend Hosea Williams, Elisabeth continues the humanitarian work of her father by leading the nonprofit he established, Hosea Helps. Elisabeth continues to blaze her own philanthropic path as an advocate and friend for the homeless, low-income families, children, and so much more, while continuing to pursue her acting career. By successfully serving the least of these in our community of Metro Atlanta for over 53 years now, Elisabeth, her husband, her parents, and family are true uncommon philanthropists in every sense of the word. Let go. Elisabeth Omilami, welcome to Uncommon Philanthropist.
Thank you, Rena. I'm just so excited to be here and see the great work that you have been doing and to see it all just blends together in one humanitarian bubble. And we have to keep it going.
I love that. Well, I am just kind of doing my initial round of people who I would absolutely love to have on the podcast. You were right at the top of the list. And I've lived in Atlanta for many years and just admire so much you and your husband, the work you do with Hosea Helps, and then the legacy of your father. And I just can't wait to have some personal time with you and unpack it all for people that are truly going to be inspired by the legacy of your family.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's not an easy walk, but it's definitely fulfilling to be able to know that there are people asking for help, and then to be able to help them as much as we can. You know, nobody can do everything. Mm-hmm. But in our lane, we are experts at mass food distribution. And we serve 51,000 people a year right now. So they're coming every week. They're coming at our major events at Hosea Helps. And I want your listeners, because I don't want to just yak on. They go to our website at forhosea.org and see we do MLK Day as a major festival. And then next thing you know, there's Easter. Then there's Back to School Jamboree. And then there is what we call Mommy and Me, where we focus on single mothers, all races, all economic levels that need self-care.
Yes.
Step away from the stress a minute. And then there is the trunk or treat in October for kids to have a safe place to get all the candy they shouldn't have. And then we're back to Thanksgiving, and all those things. All those events need donors and volunteers. And so it's been, my father passed, Hosea Williams passed in 2000. And I've been sitting in this seat since then, watching how people respond to our calls for action and seeing, you know, the struggle of the people that we serve. And now we're serving a whole different group of middle-class people. But that's what I've been watching. Yeah. And so it's been
that's
tough.
Very alarming, and people need to be paying attention to that. Well, let's kind of go back to the beginning, because I think you just must have had such an interesting childhood growing up the daughter of Reverend Hosea Williams. So let's talk a little bit about that. And I didn't realize your father was a chemist.
Yes, he was the first Black chemist to be hired by the USDA nationwide. And he came out right out of World War II to go to Morris Brown and get his degree in chemistry. And it just, we can't do what we do, none of us, whatever we do, without help from others. People that see us and say, oh, there's a bright young man right there, or a young woman. Let me try to open some doors for them. Or let me see who I can introduce them to make their journey a little easier, a little more productive. And there were certainly people that got my dad into Morris Brown College and were able to sort of mentor him through the chemistry department and all of its requirements. And then when he graduated, he started his own chemical company. And he was manufacturing from scratch, as we say.
Wow.
Floor wax, disinfectant. He was green before anybody really used the word, because he used oranges and lemons and limes in his products. And he was able to offset the fact that Martin Luther King really and his staff, they couldn't pay people as they should have been paid. They were always struggling financially. And so he had this chemical company that he could offset what was lacked in his job as executive national field organizer for Martin Luther King.
So he was one of the big funding partners of the movement.
Yes, absolutely. And we just saw his staff and others there struggle through their lives, doing this great work supporting Martin Luther King and Ralph Abernathy. They each had their lanes. They knew what their role was. And, but finances were always an issue.
I'm sure. So when did he pursue his theological training?
That was with pastors Ralph Abernathy, and there wouldn't have been a Martin Luther King, without a Ralph Abernathy. And we say this all the time because he was the person that lifted up Dr. King and trained the staff. And so their theological training came out of the West 100th Street Baptist Church. There was no ITC at that time, no college that he went to for that training. It was all on the job training. And Uncle Andy, as I call him, and Andy Young and Abernathy and Dr. King, they were all very much involved in getting these young people, getting them trained, teaching them the power of prayer in the movement. Because when you're standing there facing state troopers with bullhorns telling you, this march will not happen, you have to go by faith. And that's what they did. And that's where he got his training.
Well, I talk a lot about if you have philanthropy modeled in the home, chances are you're going to follow suit, and it's kind of normal for you. And for you to just have that seat, wow. Can't imagine how that formed you as a child, just to see that. The bravery.
I'm glad you're asking about that, because it was very traumatic. It was not a waltz through the flowers. It was getting up 5 o'clock, standing on the street corners, getting people to put change in a can that you had that somehow had your dad's picture on it, and you didn't know why or what was really happening. It meant going on buses throughout small cities throughout the South and getting out and marching and being fearful of not only what was going to happen to you, but what was going to happen to your parents. Because the women of the movement that never really get the credit for the role that they played were always there. And my mother, Juanita Terry Williams, along with Dorothy Cotton and others, kept the administrative operations, paid the bills, designed the flyers, created, where is this hotel won't take blacks? Okay, well, we're going to spend the night with this lady. Just the whole logistics of a national and then international movement, these women ran. And so for me as a child, all that was pretty traumatic because I saw a lot of violence. I saw a lot of people hating people for no reason. And that's where I learned that there were good white people, that there were white people who were willing to give their lives. People like Reverend James Reed, who was killed in the movement, and Viola Luiso, fascinating story of a woman who left her family in Chicago to come down south and help Black people learn how to register to vote. So that's when I learned that it's not about color as so much as it is about character. What is your character? And when you see things that are wrong, are you willing to say something or do something? And that's where I learned that in the movement as a young child.
That's powerful. Well, I'm sorry for your trauma, but it shaped you into the strong woman that you are today, and just your work to carry on the civil rights banner. I mean, it just, and the work of your father. Let's talk about that organization and his heart for the homeless and feeding the hungry.
Yes.
All of that start, and just to have a father wired like that, it just it brings tears to my eyes. The level of love.
Yeah. That was, it all began when Martin Luther King was assassinated for him in a way, because he said that when he met Martin Luther King, he met Jesus Christ. That was his example of true Christian walking, not Christianity, not some organized sort of place where you had rules to follow and you did this. No, but walking out the love of Christ the way he did was criticized and about being around prostitutes and tax collectors, and these are the people my father spent his time around. And if you remember, he always wore the overalls and the red shirt because he never wanted a man he would meet in the street to feel like he couldn't talk to him. He was above interacting with the people, the working poor. So when Dr. King was killed, all of the staff were they were scattered. Some went into public service, some went to form their own nonprofits, some went to write books, some went into traveling around the world to tell the stories. He was walking down Auburn Avenue, and I know you're familiar with, which was Atlanta's Black Wall Street, Auburn Avenue, and saw a homeless man eating out of a garbage can. And that moment, and we call them the Kairos moment, the moment when you step outside of space and time and something happens to you and your life is changed. And he asked this guy, why are you eating out of a trash can with all this money in Atlanta, all these resources? And it's so much still the same way today. And he said he hadn't eaten in 3 days. And my father had a lot of faults. He had a lot of demons he was always struggling with because of the way he saw the country and how it treated poor people of all races. But he was a man of action, and my mother, a woman of action. They didn't do too much sitting around trying to figure out what to do. Just if they're hungry, well, he went across the street and talked to Reverend William Holmes Borders at Wheat Street Baptist Church, and they started feeding 100 men that very Sunday of that same week. Of course, I didn't do any of the cooking because you don't want me cooking at that time. I was a young girl just out of college. And but I was good at taking pictures and capturing the stories and talking to the media and all of that. And my mother made the soup that Sunday, and it just grew from there. It just really took off and grew from there.
That is such a great story. Well, when I was researching what to call this, what would become uncommon philanthropist, the word philanthropist kind of kept coming up. And I was like, I don't know if that's right. And I looked up, one of the meanings is love of humanity.
Really? Yeah.
And I'm like, we all have the capability to be philanthropists, and we all should be, taking on that mantle, that responsibility to love one another. I mean, we haven't been doing that very well lately.
It's, love is the only way out of this conundrum we're in this country. And I say this country because I live in this country. And when you want to strike out, and Black people are really good at forgiving. I mean, look at what the race has been through. And they even, a lot of times would use religion and would use the preachers to keep slaves in line. But that's a whole nother conversation. However, we learn to love. I like that word, uncommon. Uncommon, because we somehow, out of loving the unlovable, you get peace beyond all understanding. And you have no choice. In order to hate, then that takes you to a place where you can't win. You could never have enough guns. You could never have enough.
And you can't sustain it. No. Eventually you get weary, and it's too big of a burden to bear.
It is. And first you have to love yourself, though. We get confused with that word love and its real meaning. But we have to ask ourselves, when I look at that person in the mirror, do I know who that is? And can I love who that is? And it's in the love that is engendered in our spirits through seeking how to love ourselves, that we then can turn and give to others.
There you go.
So that was a real journey for me, because I really did not love myself. I didn't believe that I had a lot to give. I went to boarding school because, I went to jail the first time when I was 9 years old. That's when a lot of the trauma began for me. But that word love, you could never study it enough. You could get degrees in it. You could go to get PhDs. You could never have it reveal its true nature enough, because we need so much more of it in this world.
And to be able to, it's easy to love your kids or your spouse, those that you share space with, but that's easy love. The really challenging love is, and to me, the really good love is when you step out in faith and love someone that is unlovable.
Oh, yeah.
Bringing hope to people that are hopeless. Doing that for many years with your nonprofit. So thank you for that.
And in many different ways.
Yeah. Before we kind of dive into more about Hosea Helps, I read where serving saves you from a life of self-centeredness. Yeah. And I think we've become very self-centered as Americans. We're just too preoccupied preoccupied with ourselves. And that is not good. That is a one-way ticket to misery.
Yeah, it's very toxic.
It is. So, yeah, I'm just excited about having these conversations with people like you that are so inspirational. And, I know at one point you pursued acting. So let's talk a little bit about that, because that's just very cool.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do anything in high school. So they sent me away to Boggs Academy, which is a boarding school, because, I was so hungry for my father's attention. And I don't mind saying this publicly, because there are many women out there who were in the same boat that I was in. And he was too busy. He had the world on his shoulders. They were all, the men and the women, sort of left their families to do this work with Martin Luther King. And so when I got to that school, which they said if I got arrested one more time, I would be classified as a juvenile delinquent and I would go away for a while. So that's why I got sent away, along with the fact that people were burning crosses in our yard and threatening our lives and all of that. So that was supposed to be a safe place. But when I got there, I didn't do sports. I wasn't good at science. I wasn't good at home economics. I say, look, they tried to eat my biscuits and they use them for golf balls. I was not good at any of that stuff my mom was so good at. So I wandered into a drama class just by happenstance. And this is where there is a plan for our lives. But we have to be malleable and listen and be led and not think we know everything. So sometimes not knowing where you're going is a good place to be, because then you'll seek out answers that you wouldn't otherwise seek out. And I started winning awards in acting, statewide awards that I couldn't get because I had to give it to the young white people that were there. So I could never get the award, but my teacher would tell me that I won the award, and then I had to give it away. And I think being a storyteller was very, very interesting to me. And I liked the fact that I could hide in the theater, that I could become another person and tell their story. Because what theater's supposed to do is reflect the culture back to the audience so that they can safely examine the issues that are presented before them and come up with some answers without having to go through it themselves. So that was where I met my husband. We were in a play together in 1975. We met. We've been married now 47 years. He's an actor also. Right. But
quite an accomplishment.
Yeah. So just have your listeners look up Hosea Omilami, and they'll see his filmography and the great work he's done with people like Tyler Perry and Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington and so forth. So I was deep into that when I graduated from Hampton University. I was going to go be an actress, and which I did, and I was very successful at that to a certain degree. I never left the South and went to LA. But then when my father passed, the question went up, well, what's going to happen now? Well, this homeless lady asked me, well, who's going to feed us now? And I was like, I don't know, lady. It won't be me. This is not my calling. I'm not supposed to do this. But there was another plan for my life there again. You pivot. You switch off and you go in another direction. And that's what I did. But I'm still doing some acting. I have a couple of auditions I should have turned in already that I didn't.
Was that a hard pivot for you? Did you?
Yes,
But
because acting was the only thing I was good at in my mind. It was the thing that
like,
kept me
like,
from feeling like nothing, feeling like I didn't have any gifts, because when you're raised in the civil rights movement, your own welfare is the last thing on somebody's mind. You just get out there, girl, and you do what we tell you to do, and you mail those letters or you make these phone calls. It's not ever about a career doing that. So I was very saddened by not being able to pursue that career. But when my father and my mother died in the same year,
oh my gosh.
in 2000,
Mm.
I didn't grieve. I just kept working because that's what I knew to do. So my story is not unique, but it is very strange. Because then I went to
Well,
feed
I think
people
it
in
is
Haiti.
unique.
I went to feed people in the Philippines. We built a school there. I went to feed people in South Africa. Things started getting international. Um, and it was so exciting doing that.
Mhm.
And we really didn't realize what danger we were in, but we were just following the call that we heard.
Mhm. Well, let's talk about. So I know your ministry is so well known for the Thanksgiving feeding programs,
Yes.
and but there's a lot more to it. So if you could
Mhm.
just kind of you tick through some of those programs that you have going on year round, and they all sound amazing. But with us being right here at Thanksgiving, talk to me a little bit about that program and how you've kept it going and the role of volunteers. How can people get involved? What they can expect if they want to go serve. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
here's my dog.
Mm-hmm. I know if you hear barking behind me, just keep going. Well, it was the biggest holiday meal in the Southeast for many years. And but everything just kept going up on us. The price of the space for one day became $30,000
Oh my gosh.
just to use that dining hall. And the fundraising didn't follow suit. It's almost like the cost of living goes up, but the minimum wage doesn't. Georgia still doesn't have a livable minimum wage. And that's something that somebody can take on, is there's so many causes to take on. So one thing happened to us. So we gave out these book bags at back to school. And on the back of the book bag, it had Hosea Helps. So the children that wore the book bags to school started getting bullied and laughed at because other kids were saying, oh, your family can't afford to feed you. You have to get fed by a charity.
Oh my gosh.
Just saying mean things.
Awful.
And so we thought, well, how can we empower the family to be there and be the server of their family, so that the children or whoever is there is empowered and they're doing this themselves. So we started giving out everything they would need for these holidays a week in advance of the holiday, so that then when the father comes to the table with the turkey and all the fixings, he's the hero, not the charity. The kids don't have to know where he got it from or where the mother gets it from. Same thing with, do you want to take the time to get up and dress your kids and it's cold and put everybody in the car and come over to the Georgia World Congress Center and stand in line to get your customized bag of toys on Christmas Day? Or would you like to wake up with all your toys right there, whether you have a tree or not, for the kids to run out of their bedrooms and say, wow, look what our parents did? So we pivoted with the knowledge that we need to not give a handout. We need to give a hand up, which is where we're in direction we've been in for the last 4 years or so. And that's what we are doing today. We also provide, based on the grants we can get, rent assistance of homeless prevention. So if you're getting evicted and you're in the county that we've got funds from, we will pay your back rent and get you caught up so you don't get evicted. This time of year, we find mothers living in the car with their kids because the shelter won't take a son over 11 with your female children. So he would have to go to the men's shelter without you. And you and your girls stay over here in this property. And so many women, rather than separate their son and put him in the kind of danger you might see in these shelters, just live in their cars. So we will put them in a hotel for a month while they work with our case manager to see, okay, where can we get some real transitional housing for you and your kids? Can we get you a job? And we give them a Walmart or whatever, Target gift card to go buy food and clothes. It's seriously complicated when you start dealing with people's lives. You can't just put them off. You can't just say, oh, well, we're going to give you a week in the hotel and then you're just on your own. Sorry. It doesn't work that way. So we do that. We provide weekly feeding, of course, groceries. And we also provide case management and counseling for those people that would almost ready to get a job. So they're getting taught how to write a resume and how to, because most of the people we see, they're not quite ready for the interview. So we try to meet the basic needs of the working poor by providing as many holistic services as we can. And really, to tell you the truth, if you're sad during the holidays, if you just get depressed on Christmas, volunteer.
Yes.
That's going to get you out of the dumps. You're going to see smiles on children's faces, but every time it takes self-sacrifice. You know what I mean? You have to sacrifice yourself to help others, and then you get the reward. So it's interesting.
Yes. Wow. Well, those are some real strategic changes within the ministry, and it sounds so wonderful. So, so do you have kind of a story of transformation, one that just kind of keep in your heart, and it just makes all the hard work worth it? Do you
worthwhile? Yeah.
Have anybody in mind that kind of think of the hand up that your organization gave them that it just made all the difference in the world?
Yes. Well, there are always amazing stories. I'm still in touch with this young lady that I'm going to tell you quickly about. Her name is, well, I can't give you her name, rather not. But when we found her, she had 6 children. And they were living in a SUV that didn't work anymore. And the kids would play outside in the SUV. They would use the bathroom right outside the SUV and all of that. And she had come to Atlanta from Mississippi with her husband. And he was laid off. And so they didn't have enough income to continue to pay the rent in the place that they were in. So she was between places. And I had no idea that this young lady was a gifted graphic artist and how smart she was. But we embraced her and the children, and we walked with them. Several months it took to get her standing up to the back from the trauma that she had endured. The kids were just so well behaved. She had trained them. They said, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. They had their school books. They would study every day. Some of them were not in school. And so we were able to work with the Atlanta public school system to get them back in school. And she got into transitional housing. And now she started her own company, and she's back in her home state of Mississippi, and she does graphic arts for companies and for individuals. And she has a line of T-shirts, and all her kids are doing well. But unfortunately, her son, it was very dangerous for young Black youth still in Mississippi. And he was shot one summer afternoon. He was just hanging out with his friends on the corner, and people in a car drove by and shot him. And so she's getting over that. That happened about 2 years ago. And we talk all the time. She sends me donations now.
That's awesome. Well, offline, share her number, because I need some T-shirt designs, and I'd love.
Yeah. Okay. I will do. She's a success story. And then this other guy came to us. This sort of a middle-aged white guy. He had a job. He got laid off. He tried to find other jobs, and he wasn't successful. It took him a year. He was still looking. He ended up living on the street. This guy had great education. He was very talented, very well skilled. And he came to us when he was packed up and living on the street. The case manager did an interview with him and was able to find him a job. And so he found that job. He got a room in a rooming house. And then from that job, he got a job in Savannah, Georgia.
Okay, so you were telling about the gentleman that another one of your transformation stories. And I think we got to the part where he went to Savannah.
Yes. When he got a job, when he was at the job he had here, the company was hiring in Savannah. So they hired him before he even got there. And now he has his own apartment. He's doing well. He's very thankful. We did get his testimony on tape. That's why it's so important to do what you're doing. Because I don't think that sometimes we're so busy trying to live our own lives and make 1 and 1 equal 2, and that we don't know how powerful we are and how powerful we could be for somebody else that doesn't have anybody. So your work is critical to growing awareness and creating some kind of awakening as to the power of service to others.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So beautiful. And so the tagline of Uncommon Philanthropist is let go. So I would love to hear you deliver. Let go.
No problem, because that's what I need to do right now. So just say those 2 words a couple of times.
Yeah. And what does let go mean to you in terms of serving and philanthropy and life transformation?
Let go. What that means to me, forget the distractions. Forget all the petty things that can come and eat up our time and our lives. Let us let go of that and focus on our goal and objectives to make this world a better place. Because if we don't do it, who's going to do it?
Exactly. It's up to us. And I love the fact that you and your husband could be enjoying retired life, and you're not. You're hanging in there. You're working hard. You're getting it done. You're letting go each and every day. And Atlanta is truly a better place because of you and the work of your family. What a legacy.
Oh my, thank you so much. To be recognized by you means a lot. Because sometimes you feel like you're over here in this bubble doing things and nobody knows about you. So the fact that you reached out to me means a lot. I hope we motivated them tonight to understand the value. You can never more than you get back. And that's my dog, but you can never give more than you get back.
Hey, and Mom, it's dinner time. Well, this has been sacred time and space for me. I just loved our conversation. Let's keep this conversation going. And
yes, ma'am. I'm going to be your new best friend.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you, Elisabeth Omilami. Keep shining,
thank you,
my
Rena.
sister. Okay.
I am an uncommon philanthropist.
Yeah, let go.
Let go.
And your voice is like butter.